Hey guys, this is Riley back for our next video, and today we're going to be interviewing an ISTJ. Our ISTJ here is Bethie or Bethany. Do you want to? Doesn't matter. Bethie. This is Bethie.
Hello.
She's an ISTJ, and we're going to be interviewing her about her type. And the first thing we're going to be talking about today is ISTJ's introverted feeling child function or third slot function can kind of give them a kind of arrogant or prideful vibe. I've gotten that a lot from the ISTJs, that not me personally, like it doesn't bother me, but I've seen a lot of people get rubbed the wrong way by ISTJs, kind of introverted feeling pride in how moral they are and how good they are at following their own moral compass and such. I don't know. Bethie wanted to talk a little bit about that, so what do you have to say about that? How can ISTJs learn to be a little bit more, I guess, humble about that aspect of themselves?
Well, for me personally, I've come from a big family, and I always wanted to be the good kid. I wanted to not make mistakes. I didn't want to have a bad record. I wanted to be the good kid.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, I was.
Yeah.
I tried not to make stupid decisions, and I would think to myself, oh, I mean, I wouldn't put it quite this way, but I'd be like, oh, look at me.
Yeah.
I'm doing really good, especially compared to Joe Schmo down the street who's really screwing up his life and whatnot. And
very responsible ISTJs.
Yes. And so I would be very proud of myself and could very easily slip into the rut of looking down on others because they had made a poor decision here or there. And
Right.
just for me personally in my life, I made several very, very poor decisions.
Okay.
And it sort of just woke me up like, well, actually,
yeah,
you're not a saint, you're not an angel, you're not doing all that well, and you're not doing any better than Joe Schmo down the street who screwed up his life 5 years ago. Or
yeah, I mean, that's very good that you have that recognition. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of have fun. Like, one of my best friends growing up was an ISTJ, and I would have fun with him sometimes, just looking down on people together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I've done a lot of terrible things in my life, so I obviously have no right to do that. It wasn't even really like that for me. I just like, talking smack about people, I guess.
Well, and I mean, there's a difference between just sort of like joking.
Right. Yeah.
And in a more prideful, superior type of mentality.
Yeah. Oh, and also what you said about the whole, like, looking good, like your reputation. I kind of forgot to mention this, but, like, extroverted thinking and introverted feeling are on an axis. Like, you have one, you have the other. So, introverted feeling is all about doing the right thing, but extroverted thinking is all about your reputation. So those two, sounds like you're kind of bringing in both of those. Like, extroverted thinking parent does want people to think highly of them, which, makes a lot of sense with what you were saying. Yeah, do you have anything else to say about that, or do you want to move on to the cognitive functions?
I think that pretty much covered.
Yeah. And we can come back when we hit that cognitive function. Okay, so your first cognitive function in order is introverted sensing. This cognitive function is connected to long-term memory, physical fortitude to an extent, like dealing with a lot of adversity. It has to do with knowing your responsibility and your duty to, other people and carrying that out. I know that a lot of times, because I have introverted sensing child, a lot of the ISTJs in my life, like at my old work, would outperform me in this way, which would kind of get on my nerves. I'd be like, I'm the one who always shows up on time, and here you are 15 minutes early. Doing your duty better than I ever could. So yeah, I definitely look up to ISTJs in this way. But I was curious what you have to say about introverted sensing as your top function.
Well, there have been several scenarios, especially in my early childhood, where I was put in circumstances where I was taking care of my younger siblings, and so I was the responsible one. I was taking care of everybody, making sure they were okay, just watching out for them. And in regard to adversity, well, I mean, I've had a fairly easy childhood life so far.
Yeah.
Compared to, I mean, other stories of people and the lives and difficulties they've been through. But I know. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, like, even taking care of your siblings, like, a lot of kids who weren't so dutiful and really understood that it's their responsibility, I could see complaining a lot about that. But I haven't heard, one complaint from you, obviously. And I feel like that's very dutiful and admirable that you do that. So yeah, I mean, that's a good example, taking care of your siblings. So
I felt it was my job, my
responsibility.
As oldest.
Yeah.
Yes. I guess to give you more background, more detail, my dad divorced my mom, and so.
I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. And so when we would go and visit him, he was a very dysfunctional person. Just to not get into all of everything. And so when we would go for like visits over the weekend or whatnot, I felt it was my duty as the oldest and whatnot to make sure my younger siblings were behaving, they were taken care of, they weren't watching movies that were too bad for them or whatnot. And so I felt it was my duty when we weren't with my mom. Obviously, my mom would watch out for us.
To be the one to step in. Yeah.
So I felt that as my responsibility, and even still, it weighs on me. Even now when they're adults, and they don't need me to watch out for them. But in regard to the adversity part, like I said, I have not had a rough life. Especially, I mean, here we are, middle class America.
Right.
We're doing pretty good.
Right.
But just one quick scenario. I had a previous coworker. He, let's see. He had found out some information about some of the people he was working with and whatnot. And he was telling me about it, and he said it took him so long to process. He was days later, and he's like, I'm still processing this.
Okay.
I don't know if this is quite what you're going for, but for me, I'm like, okay, it's time to move on. I'm sorry that bad thing happened. I'm sorry. But in another sense, you've got to just buck up and be a man. And even if you're a woman, buck up and be a man. I mean, my mom would always tell us that. She's like, hey, girls, grow up, be a man. Not in a...
I get what you mean.
Okay. Just...
I mean, that's cool. That's cool.
I don't know if that's quite what you were going for.
No, definitely, yeah. This is just a personal story. One of my best friends, I think I mentioned him early in the video, like he, it was really interesting because we had this conversation. He ended up getting really sick and going to the hospital, terrible sickness. Anyways, when I took him to the doctor, before we went, we, for some reason, we're just talking about who could put up with the most, like who was the toughest person in the group of our friends. And he told me my brother, who's an INFP, which actually he can put up with quite a bit because he has introverted sensing child like me. But I was like, no, actually, dude, I think you could put up with the most. Like, I think you could really take a lot of punishment and just keep going, you know what I mean? And he proved it. He definitely proved it. Like, he is a strong person. So just wanted to mention that. So yeah, I definitely admire ISTJs in that way. Another interesting thing that I just popped in my mind, a famous ISTJ actually is Rockefeller, richest man who ever lived. But his dad was like a drunk, I think, spent all the family money and like walked out on them. It's very interesting to read about like how an ISTJ, because I like thinking about what type historical figures are and how they acted. And he, because of that adversity, he became very strong because of that experience. And he figured out how he was going to provide for his whole family as a kid by himself.
Wow.
And he, you know, it was almost like, and this is actually from one of Robert Greene's books. I don't remember which one. Anyways, it was interesting to see the dynamic of, as an ISTJ, his dad was he was like a salesman or something, maybe an ENFP or something. But he was very disorganized salesman, not good at responsibility. And Rockefeller was all about cleaning up the world and organizing it. Like, his ISTJ duty was to not only organize and take care of his family, protect his family, but he just took that life philosophy and organized the entire Wild West of the oil, the field of oil, the industry, the oil industry of the time was the Wild West. He organized it and made it what it is today. And anyways, I just thought that was an interesting anecdote of a famous ISTJ that I admire.
Interesting.
But
would Ben Carson
an
ISTJ?
I don't.
It just popped into my head.
I don't know.
Just now. Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious. I might know who he is, but I can't think of who that is right now.
Oh, okay. But
who is he?
Okay. He ran for president in 2016, and he's a neurosurgeon, and he later became one of the cabinet members for President Trump. I can't remember which position he held, but he grew up. I think he had one younger brother. I don't know a whole lot about him, but just from what I know, his dad was out of the picture, and his mom raised the two boys. She had hardly any money, but she made sure they got an education, and so his childhood was rough, but he became educated and became world-renowned neurosurgeon, and he performed surgeries that no one else had performed before. And he seems like a very ordered type of person. I don't know a whole lot about him. That's pretty much the extent of my knowledge.
Interesting to find out.
He just popped into my mind when you were talking about Rockefeller.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone. We're definitely using our introverted sensing together and telling all these stories and not getting to the point. Let's move on to extroverted thinking, parent function or second slot function. So that has to do with, we mentioned your reputation, but also organizing things like spreadsheets a lot of time are a big deal, like crunching numbers. I know my former ISTJ, like best friend, I guess I shouldn't say former because we're still friends, but he was super organized, obviously, but he was very good at time management. He did not waste a minute of his day. And, between the gym and like working full time and going to school, he just had so many things going at once, and he could just pull it off. He's always moving. But a lot of that had to do with, he would calculate how much time everything took and have a spreadsheet. And, that's how he was able to keep organized with his time. So yeah, I guess how do you experience that cognitive function?
Well, I very much like to be organized. I like to plan ahead. I very much like to manage my time, so I have a mental idea of what I'm going to do each day, how long it takes. I
Right.
plan ahead, and if I don't have a plan for a chunk of time, if there's just some limbo time, it makes me very uncomfortable. Like, okay, I need to have a plan. I need to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I very much like to have that all organized.
Oh yeah.
For me, I usually make lists because I'm not super great with technology and computers, which is ironic because I work at a computer all day. But
well, you're learning, so.
Yes. So I usually make lists of what I'm going to do for the day, my goals for what I want to achieve.
Lots of sticky notes if you see this lady's desk.
Oh my heavens. I go through sticky notes like crazy.
It's cool. I definitely, not to just go on at how much I admire ISTJs, but the reason, why there's so many things that, I was not a clean person until my ISTJ friend, this is crazy. When we were kids, he would see how dirty my room was, and he'd be like, "Do you want to clean your room?" And when I was being lazy and terrible, I would let him help me clean my room, and it would just keep getting dirty. But eventually, I learned my lesson, and I actually do, keep my stuff pretty clean, and I'm a lot more ordered. I keep a schedule, and I clean my car every other week and stuff like that.
Your car looks very clean.
Thank you. My old car is not so much, but I fully would thank my ISTJ friend for teaching me the importance of keeping things clean and organized and having a schedule. Very helpful. So, do you have anything else to say about extroverted thinking? Second slot, I don't know, anything to do with reputation or research maybe, I guess. We didn't really touch on that. The researching thing, ISTJs can be very good at researching. They can gather a lot of information.
I do, like I was telling you earlier, I, on the one hand, like to research. I like to, I'm always looking for more information. I want to accumulate as much information as I can, and I can sort of file things away in files in my mind, and so I can, it's very organized.
Yeah.
So I can pull out a file. I can see someone come in, and I know I can pull out their file. Oh, they have this car. They have this problem. They live here.
That's
so
very cool.
I have sort of files on people.
Yeah.
And files on subjects, and so it's.
That sounds very, very useful.
It is handy.
Yeah.
But like I was mentioning earlier, sometimes often when I'm researching, I just sort of skim.
Yeah.
And so I don't really get into, I don't research as much as I should. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I will.
Very base level stuff.
Yes.
Take things at face value. Yeah.
I'll read a lot. I love reading books, so I'll just read any chance I get.
Yeah.
But if I'm researching, I will look at headlines, and if it's a source I trust, then I will pretty much not dig into it.
Got it.
So I won't just believe anything I read.
Yeah.
But if it's a source I trust, I'll be like, okay, they said this. I'm not going to fact check them. I'm not going to research them any further. I'll just believe what the headline says.
Yeah.
which is something I need to get better at, because especially on social media and on the internet, people say all sorts of things which are completely untrue,
right,
or skewed or taken out of context, and so I really should get way better about that.
That's good.
But my mom,
she's very good
at research, so she will read article after article from this side, from this perspective, and fact check this, and
cool.
So having her raise me has really helped me.
That's cool.
To the extent that I do research and do question things and try to check sources and stuff like that. But I should get way better. So
it's very interesting to hear how different it is, because I have introverted sensing and introverted thinking paired when I'm thinking, and then you have introverted sensing with extroverted thinking. So like you talk about, you have an external stimuli coming in, like a person, and you have like files and it's like info. But like for me, or for introverted thinkers using that, we have a wide breadth of like knowledge that we've collected, but it's not organized really. It's more like you're trying to piece together like a theory of everything. So it's like you're trying to come up with a logical underpinning of everything that you experience. So it's more like a web, whereas yours is more like a file folder or something. Like, that's just interesting to see the difference of how that would work. Okay, I guess with that we'll move on to introverted feeling. We've already covered that a lot. The moral, the I don't know, the moral compass of the cognitive functions. It also has to do a lot with value. People who have introverted feeling are able to have like a scale of value. They see things in terms of value, whereas I see things in terms of, okay, is it true or is it false? And that's it. But someone like a...
Do you want me to turn it off?
No, it's okay. Yeah, so how do you experience that function?
It's the top right button. Well, sorry. Sorry, no one should be calling.
Yeah, the moral compass thing, value, you already touched on it a little bit, but did you have anything else to say about that?
Well, not too much to add. I do, like you were talking about, think a lot in terms of morality and values, and how to make choices based on that.
Yeah.
But
I'm trying to think of like an example that would help, but I just can't. I can't think of anything else. I'm very tough on this cognitive function because I don't have hardly any of it, so I don't really know how it feels. So like when it comes out in me, it just comes out as angry usually, but
okay.
Moral indignation or something, but
right.
That's about it. So I don't really, it's hard for me to describe it. But yeah, I mean, we can move on if there's nothing else you can think of on that one.
That was the main thing.
Yeah, and we did talk about it quite a bit earlier, so. Okay. So let's talk about extroverted intuition, inferior. So since it's your inferior or fourth slot function, that means that you're a little bit like you want to be very good at it. You would like to, with extroverted intuition, you would like to be very wanted and to understand the implications of everything all the time. You'd like that to come very easily to you, but at the same time, you're worried that you're not so good at that. You're worried that you're not wanted, or that you don't have a full understanding of what's going to happen in the future and stuff like that. So I was wondering how you experience that function, and you can start with, either one of those attributes of extrovert intuition, but...
Well, this is sort of on the back burner of my mind, like, all the time. I want to be wanted. And like you were saying, I want to be in the midst of a project. I want to feel needed. I want to feel like I'm constructive or helpful or doing something useful. And there is always the worry, like, oh, someone else can do it better. Or you should just step aside because
right.
she's got this covered. She doesn't need your help.
Right.
I want to be there. I want to be involved. I want to participate. But there is always the inhibition where I'm thinking, you should just go home because you're not actually helping all that much.
That's so terrible. I mean, I think that's
so
really
it can be very
unfortunate.
depressing.
Like I've said, I've gotten great advice from ISTJs, so I like to, with every type, really, but definitely with ISJs, I try and make sure that they are more comfortable with giving their advice and, knowing that their help is needed. Like, obviously, you're very helpful around here. So.
Well, thank you. But in regard to the
Predictive.
Yes, predicting type of aspect of this, there have been several scenarios, like I was mentioning to you, either in practical scenarios or in relationships, where I can see things coming.
Yeah.
So if how a household is run, I will see problems. I'll say, oh, this shouldn't be run this way because it's going to cause problems down the road, or no one's going to like it if you run this way because it's just not going to work for whatever reason.
Right.
So I do often see that, and
do you think that you're sometimes afraid to say something though? Like, do you think you are a little bit unsure about it sometimes? Like,
absolutely.
I would like to say that this is going to happen if you don't stop doing that, but
Absolutely.
I'm a little worried to say that.
Yes, because I don't want to be proven wrong, and then everyone is like, "Oh, she's an idiot."
Yeah.
So I'm very hesitant to say, I think this will be a problem down the road.
Yeah.
And so just an example in relationships, my previous boyfriend, we would often have discussions, and I would say, okay, you're like this, I am like this. If we're going to go forward, there's going to be a problem here, here, and here.
Yeah.
There's friction in this aspect of the relationship. If you want to run things this way, and I want to run things this way, there's going to be a problem there. And I could list numerous ways.
Yeah.
And we'd often have these discussions, and I would say, okay, here's a problem, here's a problem, here's a problem. And we'd talk about it, whatever. And at least once or twice, I would ask him, I'd be like, do you see any problems in the relationship or going forward, or where we need to talk, where we need to work things out?
Yeah.
And he'd be like, no. I'm like, okay, apparently it's just me.
Yeah.
But I could often see things coming, see areas that would need to be talked out, discussed.
I could see how that could be very, hurtful too, to not have that taken seriously, especially if is something that was totally valid and did cause issues, but it was just ignored. Stuff like that.
In his defense, he would listen to me.
Okay.
There were a whole lot of other issues, but in that area, he would listen to me, and he would be very open to talking if I said, I think we need to talk about this issue.
Yeah, well, that's
so,
good.
that was very helpful.
Well, I applaud you talking about your inferior function. Some people that I interview either, sometimes they avoid talking because it's too sensitive or whatever. Because it is like everyone's inferior function is their sensitive spot. They don't really like talking about it. So also just your understanding of it was pretty good. It's impressive. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
With that, we'll talk about your fifth slot function, which is extroverted sensing. And this is what causes ISJs, but especially ISTJs, to be very, very organized with their external environment. Like, they see something wrong, they've got to fix it. They've got to make sure that it's conducive to their own comfort and their own, so that they can do things well or comfortably or keep up with their habits, and also that it's not giving anyone else a bad experience, etc. Bethie's a very clean person. We all appreciate
Oh my heavens.
it. Very clean.
Yes. I'm slightly obsessive. I mean, I've been called OCD all my life. My brothers especially twit me like crazy, because I am always going around cleaning and tidying up and straightening things and putting them away where they go. And I mean, it's just a family joke.
Right.
This is what Bethie does.
Right.
And if I know someone well enough and I go over to their house, I'll just start cleaning for them.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to do it with strangers because that seems really rude.
That's fair.
But
That's fair. Some people would take that as rude, but
yes. But yes, I have a reputation for being
very clean.
obsessive
Yeah.
about cleaning.
Yeah. I mean, it's very helpful though. Someone's got to do it.
Yes, I try not to be overly obsessive.
Yeah.
Because I know, especially some women, if they they can just be overly obsessive and everything must be perfectly clean, and I don't want to create an environment where people are uncomfortable. Just wanting to feel at home in my home, because they don't want to mess anything up. They don't want to offend me or make me upset because they messed up my house. So I want them to be comfortable, but I also really want it to be clean. And so I'm always trying to balance that. I don't want to say, oh my heavens, don't sit on my couch because you're going to mess up my couch.
Yeah. I'm glad that you understand that, because I've definitely... I've actually lived with an ISTJ, and I super appreciate the cleanliness, but he would get a little over controlling about it sometimes. Like, I was like, there was one, because, you know, it had to look the way that he wanted it to look.
Right.
And we had a coffee maker. He got a French press, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just keep using the coffee maker. And he's like, well, it's mine. I'm not going to use it. I don't want it on the counter. And I was like, well, you know, I want a coffee maker. And he was like, well, I'll throw it away. And I was like, well, I'll take it out of the trash. And he was like,
oh no,
I'll get my own. Like, what the heck is going on? Like, you're not going to, he just would not let me have a coffee maker on the counter.
Oh no.
I was like, oh my gosh. But
they are very unattractive. I mean, if you're just going for aesthetics, they're very unattractive.
They are. I mean,
still, coffee is important.
Which there was a method of doing that with the French press, but still, it's just things like that where sometimes it can go a little bit over the top.
It can. And that's the nice thing about having so many siblings. I have 5 brothers.
It's a little hard to
It really is. Yeah. So, I mean, I like things to be clean and tidy, but then I'm like, well, I have 5 brothers.
Right.
And I can't have things as clean and tidy as I want. And especially with little kids, you just have to get used to there being a mess pretty much all the time. Yeah. And so keep it as clean as you can, but don't be too obsessive. At least that's what I tell myself.
Right. So with that, we'll talk about introverted thinking critic function a little bit. That's your logic function. So everything that you research, theoretically, you should be running through your logic function. Like, does this actually make sense? Sometimes you can be very critical about it. I've noticed, personally, sometimes INTJs and ISTJs can sometimes really take the wind out of my sails sometimes, which is good. It is actually good, because I'll go off on this tangent about how this and that works, and they'll be like, but what about this? Like, oh, shut up. No, but it's good. Like, they'll actually be very critical, one, about their research, but also about the logical progression of things, if they actually do make sense. So I don't know if you have any experiences with introverted thinking that you can think of, or
so very much how you described it was very accurate. I can read about something, or it's often happened when I'm studying theology. I'll read about this or that, and at least for me, usually I have to just let it sort of settle in my mind and just think about it, and like, well, this person believes this and this person believes that. What is true and what is accurate, but also what makes sense.
Yeah.
So it really has to, I suppose, resonate with me.
Yeah.
Which isn't perhaps a very good thing, because you want the truth and actual facts to be your basis, your foundation.
Right.
But often it will, if it resonates with me, or if it makes sense with me, then it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Then I will be like, okay, I accept this. So
yeah.
I don't know if that's...
No, that makes sense. I was curious, though, because with the rules thing that we were talking about, this is kind of where that comes in, too.
Okay.
Because ISTJs usually follow the rules, but I've seen ISTJs, a lot of times, they'll break the rules, and they'll discard the rules because they don't think that it makes sense, and that's their
Very
TI
true.
critic.
Yes.
It's their ESTP, unconscious, sometimes they'll challenge the rules. If it really doesn't make sense to them, they feel that it's their moral duty, I've seen, to just make sure that they're actually using a system that works. So
that is very accurate. Yes. Like we were mentioning speeding before. I like to break rules sometimes.
Yeah.
I have been known to speed.
Yeah.
But yes, I mentioned a few different work environments earlier, and there would often be rules set in place. I didn't know why they were set in place, and perhaps it was a scenario in the past which caused this rule to be made, and I would come along and I would think, why on earth? This makes no sense. Why should I be doing my work this way?
Right.
It makes no sense. I can do it faster. I can do it better if I do it this other way.
Yeah.
And my boss, in whatever scenario, would be like, "Oh, you have to follow this rule," and it would be very frustrating because I feel like, but it's stupid, and let me tell you how it's stupid, and I can, and
I love this about ISTJ. Like, again,
I can get you in a lot of trouble though.
My best friend, he broke rules if they didn't make sense, and he would tell people how stupid they were.
Yes.
But at the same time, he was very successful at what he did, and he a lot of times became manager and stuff, so it ended up working out for him. But a lot of people hated it, to be honest, because of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I sort of want to be the person who is a good girl and follows all the rules and everything, but on the other hand, it's like, okay, but all these rules you're making are stupid.
Yeah.
They're wasting my time, and I can do what you want me to better if you just leave me alone.
Right. Ooh, that's very cool.
Well, yeah. So.
Okay, well, do you want to talk about, I know we're running low on time now, but...
Sorry.
No, it's all good. Extroverted feeling blind spot. I know you've mentioned a little bit that you can come off... Well, someone just told you that you sound like a robot once. That's all I can really go off of. But
yes.
Yeah, I guess, do you have any issues, like understanding how people feel, or empathizing, I guess, with people, or...
Well, I guess there are many aspects of this. So I think people who don't know me well see me as very, I mean, I've been told I sound like a robot.
Yeah.
Not in a complimentary way. It was
Yeah.
not a compliment.
Yeah.
And people, like coworkers that haven't known me for very long, are surprised when I do show emotion because I'm very reserved.
Yeah.
And very closed to people I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think people that don't know me well see me as very cold.
Right.
So that's probably
another thing. Sorry to cut you off, but
fine.
like with an INTJ, the INTJ that I interviewed too, I don't know if this resonated with you, but I just thought about it, is that it seems like ISTJs and INTJs, they like to work through their own feelings, kind of by themselves. They don't exactly need someone to listen to them or work them through things so much. I don't know if that really resonates so much, but
yes,
I've heard that from an INTJ at least.
Yes, that is very accurate.
Yeah.
There have been a few scenarios where I am at such a pitch emotionally that I feel like I need to talk to someone. But it's
Usually
pretty
not.
rare.
Yeah.
Usually I'm okay if usually what I do is go take a walk by myself.
Yeah.
Late at night when there's no one, and I think I work things out. I file things away, put it. Filing is not. It's not a very nice.
It sounds very.
It sounds very cold and clinical.
I wonder why people call you. No.
I know exactly. And so I just work it out, and then I come back, and I'm like, okay, now I can go forward.
Okay.
So there have been a few scenarios when I feel like I need to vent or talk to a friend.
Yeah.
But it's usually fairly rare. Usually I can just work it out on my own.
Yeah. I mean,
and I don't
cool.
like having to talk to other people and just divulge everything.
Yeah.
So I don't really like that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's cool. That's part of the reason why TPs, which I'm a TP, work pretty well with TJs is because other people's emotions kind of freak me out. You know, a lot of the times, like, if someone's really emotional, I'm just like, but,
yes.
you know, with TJs, they're not like that. So they talk about it very rationally, and I can deal with that.
Yes.
Yeah, so with that, we didn't go over introvert intuition demon or 8th slot function. I kind of talked about it, like, you know, if you don't feel appreciated, do you just take over and go after what you want? I don't know how much that resonates with you, or if you want to talk about that, but
there is a certain aspect of that in me. If I feel like I've tried, I've done what I can, and it's not good enough, or no one has, I guess, noticed. That sounds very
but
self-centered.
I understand.
If no one's appreciative or whatnot, then it's like, okay, well, I'm done here. I tried, I did what I could, and
now you're gonna do what you want.
yes,
Yeah.
I don't want to keep trying.
Yeah, no, and
But,
that's fair. I mean, it sounds mean, or it's called the demon function for a reason, but that's why people, you know, resort to that when they're, like, for me, extroverted feeling is my inferior function, so introverted feeling is my demon function. If I feel like, because I try and help people, but it's not a lot of the time noticed because I'm not necessarily that good at helping people. But, like, if I feel like no one appreciates my help, you know, okay, well, if you don't care that I'm helping you feel better, then I only care how I feel. And we're going to do what I want now, and how I feel only matters to me. I don't care how you guys feel about it. Stuff like that. So that's definitely understandable. But I believe we're running low on time, so do you just want to wrap up with any advice that you have for ISTJs out there?
Well, I suppose this is cropped up throughout the video.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess three things.
Okay.
And
That's good.
they've come up before, so
Yeah.
it's probably just a repetition. But these are things that I often have to tell myself.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it will help anyone else, but it's what I have to tell myself. In regard to the moral pride,
Mm-hmm.
even though I think I'm such a good person, and I think I make all the right decisions, or at least most of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I make a bad decision, oh, it's just a minor one.
Mm.
Just remember that. Well, I remind myself that you've slipped up a fair bit, so don't think of yourself all that much.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think of yourself more highly than you ought.
Yeah.
And don't look down on other people, because no matter what you think, they're trying.
Yeah. That's really good.
So there's that. In regard to the cleanliness, don't be obsessive. And having a lot of siblings has really helped me with that. Just because there's almost no point. No point is probably not a good way of putting it, but
You can't be too.
exactly.
Yeah.
Especially with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And oh shucks.
The research thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The research. I personally try to find sources that I trust.
Mm-hmm.
This is the third bit of advice.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm researching, I try to find sources that I trust.
Yeah.
And go from there. But even sources that you trust can make mistakes or misrepresent things or take things out of context. So I often have to tell myself, well, that's what they said, but
Yeah.
you should look into it more. You should double check. You should verify. You should
Yeah.
research it more. So I guess those would be...
Yeah, that's really good advice.
It's what I tell myself.
Awesome.
Repeatedly.
Well, thank you so much for this interview. That was actually really good. So
good.
thank you so much. All right.
Absolutely.
I'll see you guys next time.